Guys, I got so close to filling up the reservoir, conditioning the brakes, flying the bogey with the new Beringer wheels. But alas, one of the brake lines that I adapted to match with the Matco OEM RANS stuff to the Beringers, it wasn't quite long enough, so I jumped in head first. I ripped out the rudder pedals, the brake master cylinders, and everything, and so we're giving it a go. First off, check out this shirt from Wearworthy. Not sponsored, just a good friend of mine, Carson. He's got this awesome t-shirt. I got a bunch more at home. Also, want to win a Zenith, right? So let me catch you guys up on what we're doing here. So first off with the brake lines. This was my biggest concern of how to match the AN4 fittings to the metric banjo stuff, and I am amazed that it has been so much easier than I even imagined. The reason is the brake lines that RANS supplies you with are the exact same brake lines that Beringer uses. I had no idea how to make my own brake line. In fact, I had some brake lines that weren't quite the right length, so I ordered them from Aircraft Specialty. But with the Beringer stuff, you make your own brake lines. They sent me with a whole bunch of brake lines, and I was worried that this wasn't gonna be enough. Turns out, I might not even use any of this because I am gonna use most of what RANS supplied me, because check this out. A lot of the stuff that goes behind the brakes that could potentially have some abrasion with this metal brazing, it comes with a nice plastic sleeve. So I'm gonna try to repurpose some of these, and I'm showing you my first brake line that I made, and I just clipped it off of my old system, both sides, and put two banjo fittings on. And the first tip I'm gonna give you, and this came directly from Brian Bowen, thank you, Brian, was don't tighten these down immediately because that sets the clock position. You might want to have to twist one, but they don't really twist once they're locked. So leave them a little bit loose. That way you can clock them in place and then go ahead and torque them down. That's the first thing that I'll kind of address as far as the brake line goes. The second thing is the way I'm adapting this, and really the three places I'm adapting from the RANS kit, is the two bulkhead fittings beneath the belly that go from inside the cockpit down to the brake lines. Those are gonna stay AN4. I didn't have a good metric solution for that. So those are gonna stay AN4. So I'm just using an AN4 fitting that came on a line, clipped off the other AN4, and now I'm putting on banjo lines. In fact, I've already got the left one done. So that solves that. Those are the two AN fittings. And then the third place is I am gonna use the original or the OEM Matco reservoir because it's on the hot side of the firewall and it's up high. And so it's super, super easy to check, refill, and it's a larger reservoir. So I'm gonna leave that plumbing alone, and it tees into the inside or the cold side of the firewall with a 2 AN4 T. So that requires another place that I'm gonna use old AN4 hardware and then adapt it to either straight or banjo fittings. As far as other adaptations go, the OEM hardware that goes through the rudder pedal itself that compresses the brake, that's an AN3. But this hole right here on this eyelet is an M6, 6mm. So they send you with a bushing. The bushings are pretty slick that fit the AN3 to M6, which is awesome. Those are really, really hard to find. They're just a little bit different as far as the width. So I need a little bit longer of an AN. Okay, so let me just talk specifics here. This is an AN3-10. I'm gonna step it up to a -11 or -12. I've ordered both from Aircraft Spruce because it is a little bit wider right there, and that's no problem because I can tell this has been actually pushed in from before, so it's just going to actually straighten out these two flanges right here and make it exactly parallel. But that's going to require a slightly longer AN3 bolt with the castellated nut with a cotter pin. So I've got those on order. So I'm not gonna finish this today clearly, but I gotta go do an airline trip and it should be waiting for me by the time I get back. But there's plenty to do now. And that is essentially replicate all of these lines. So I'm gonna start tearing into it, clipping them off, and I'll show you how I'm doing the banjo lines, and I'll kind of walk you through everything else as I go. Regarding the parking brake, I got this in no time at all from Beringer. And this is the Matco one that I pulled out from the Bogey. The first thing to note is that this was mounted with two AN3s and the spacing is different than this. So I'm gonna have to yeah, I could use one of the holes, but I think I'm just going to move it because the other reason is that the arm is on the opposite side. These are two straight fittings, so make sure you don't mess up and put banjo fittings on your cables on that. And then there's two banjo fittings that'll go right here. This is the input, and then flow goes out right there. That's a lot to do before I go on my trip and then have the hardware waiting for me to install this thing. So I want to get as many of these brake lines done as I can. And that, for me, takes the longest time and is a bit tedious. So I would recommend, you know, like my high-powered spectacles and a good light to go in there and fray the steel braids, and also wear a pair of gloves because these guys can get you. But I'll show you that close up. Let's go. Okay, let's go ahead and modify this line. And this is going to be to my existing AN4 hardware. I think where it tees in from the reservoir. And then, well, actually we'll keep this one, and then we'll cut off this one and turn this into a banjo fitting. So, and everything I'm doing here, don't take it as instruction because this is the first time I'm doing it. I'm just showing you what I'm learning here. So we're gonna clip this off. You could take a Dremel tool, but I've also seen just on Beringer's website, they clip it off like so. And again, this one isn't just the steel braid, it's got the protective plastic sheathing on it, so we're going to cut that back a little bit. This is not going to be a straight fitting, it will be a banjo fitting. Now we want to fray back the steel braid for this olive to fit between the steel braid and the PTFE 3mm tube inside, down to 5mm back. So I found pretty good success using a small flathead, and one of the sides of braid is easier than the other. I'm hoping this is an easy side. Of course, very important not to get anything inside of the tube, or at least flush it out. Make sure inside the tube is clean. Appears this is the easy side. It's working back pretty nicely. The other side that's more difficult, I've got this that I've been using as well as, let's see if I can find it, this awl right here, and it's actually hooked on one side, and I've kind of just unbraid it and fray it out a little bit more, but I think this is the easy side. It's going a little bit quicker, and of course it helps to have gloves on. Looks good. And then we want to make sure that this is nice and round. Slide this guy on. Okay. I'm going to push it nice and secure. On. Okay. Then you want to lubricate the threads a little bit. Just use a little dab of brake fluid, and in this case this system is using mineral oil, so make sure you're using the right kind of brake fluid. Cool. Finger tight, that way when I go to install it, I can still clock it however I need to before then securing it the rest of the way. But there you go. So now I've adapted it from AN4 to Beringer banjo fitting. Only 8 more to go. on the parking brake arm. First little issue on the parking brake is you can see where it was mounted before, and that is the parking brake off. I'll pull the handle, pulls it closed. All right, so open, closed. The way this works is that is open and that is closed. So same operation as the Matco. This is a straight fitting, so this comes right up into that bar. Imagine this against the firewall. It goes right up against that bar. So I think what I need to do is maybe 3D print a block to pull this forward just a hair, so this will bolt through the firewall, but there will be a block offsetting it from that bar. So I think I'm gonna talk to my brother-in-law Phil, who's got a 3D printer. We're gonna print up a block to get this mounted. What do you think? You like this 3D block? Thanks, Phil. I forgot to film us doing the handoff, but what he said was, in the future, if you just want the holes pre-designed into it, it'd be much stronger that way, because now I'm gonna have to drill slow. And this is a carbon infused plastic. On the IFR front pitot-static leaks, I'm gonna swap everything out. These are called ferrule fittings. And yeah, that's gonna be an episode coming soon, and hopefully I'll pass my IFR certification. So look for that coming soon, and if it's been a while, look for the link. I'll put it right here. Did a little research on brake fluid, and there is a mineral fluid that meets the spec that's higher flash point, and maybe that's why Beringer doesn't want you mounting their brake reservoirs on the hot side of the firewall. But I had no issues with this Grove Reservoir on the hot side of the firewall. But again, I didn't install these because mainly for access, right? So there's a left and a right individual reservoir, of course, and they fit like on the front side of the brake pedal. And I just didn't like the thought of having to get way back in here to fill my reservoir. So I think it's a great idea when you have good access to it. If you had a removable boot cowl or something, maybe that's a good option. But for me, this was just too easy to access. I mean, I don't even need to take off the bottom half of the cowl to get to that thing. And just to be thorough, I am using the 5606A, which is the lower flash point mineral hydraulic fluid. Bringing the two mounting holes together with a file. Stainless steel. Yeah, match drilled the block to the parking brake side, firewall side. I think I'm gonna mount, because in the RANS application they had me put some 3M tape between these and rubber grommets, because you don't want this vibrating too much since it's mounted on the firewall. So we're gonna try to isolate that a little bit with some 3M tape and potentially some grommets. In case I forget to talk about it, this is the parking brake. Yes, I grew a mustache on my trip. I actually had my beard, and I was just like, I hate shaving my beard, so let me just remember it. Plus, it's Mustache March. Today's the last day. All right, so this is the part number FP005.1, and I think part of why Beringer has partnered with me is to refine this RANS S-21 kit, so that anytime you guys want to buy it, I've gone through it and solved a couple of these things. So I think I talked a little bit about this, but the way that this mounts on the firewall, right, I have addressed that, I know that. So wouldn't it be great if I could just install it like this and have the parking brake work on the backside? But this particular part doesn't work over here with this, but there is a part that does, where you can flip it backside and it has the same operation, like open, closed there, and then, or you can mount it like this, like it's meant to. On this side of it, it rotates, but this one doesn't. But they're sending it to me, but I'm not going to get it in time to go fly with my friends on my trip and my wife. So I'm going to get this mounted. We're going to have this interim solution, and then and then when I get some downtime, I'll pull everything out, replace it with the parking brake, and then I won't even need this block. We'll mount this hard to the firewall. I say hard, but with some tape and vibration isolation. So I just want to address that quickly before we get this in there, but let's get going. Pretty much ready to install this back in the aircraft. All right, here goes nothing. A little bit of grease for the squeakiness. I'm not gonna lie, that was backbreaking, but I think we're nearly there. Let me show you. Parking brake installed, hooked up, and then all the plumbing to all of the master cylinders. Got the hardware in at the bottom of the brake cylinders. You really want to fill the reservoir from the calipers up, so there's all sorts of stuff, but I wanted one today, so I just went to Harbor Freight and got essentially a syringe. So I'm just gonna push it in, if that'll work, from the bottom up. All right, moment of truth. So we're just gonna try to do this as carefully as we can. It's open, that side's closed. Should fit that nipple pretty well. I've got the cap off of the reservoir. No, man, it is not going in. Why is that? You figured it out. All right, what's the one thing that could potentially be blocking hydraulic pressure in this whole system? The parking brake. All right, so I'm happy I found out what was wrong, filled it up, good tension on the brake pedals, good resistance, actually braking. But the bad news is that the parking brake was the culprit. Let me show you what I'm talking about. There's no leaks, so that's fantastic news. Close up of kind of the installation there. That's where it comes in from the reservoir through the firewall. That T right there. Lots of good pressure there. So that's wonderful. So the parking brake, where I have it installed, so first off, this is full in, right? There's no more that this cable can come down at all. So where I had this installed, right there, and I had to drill out, let me go behind this rudder pedal, see if I can show you. I had to drill out the arm to fit the cable connector right there. Well, in that position, the parking brake is actually slightly on. And that is a safety of flight issue because of the way that this system works is you can actually pump up the brakes from zero. So if you're working the rudder pedals and it's slightly on, you're gonna land and with locked wheels. Bad juju. So I firmly believe that when I get that new parking brake and I can mount it upside down, if it's in the same exact position, I can drill in that closest, furthest up hole. You can see right there. So a hole right here. Then that could potentially get the arm to go down a little bit more. I could potentially replace this cable, pull it out from, I think it's McFarlane, put a new one in, and just have an extended cable. That's a future Steve problem. In the meantime, we want to get this flown safely. So what I'm going to do is, like you can see, I've disconnected this arm and pull it all the way down, and then safety wire it probably to this brake line. I'm going to make sure that there's very little play right there, so that if it moves around, it's not going to engage the brake. I'm just going to live with no parking brake for just a couple weeks. I'm probably going to get the parking brake here in the next couple days, but we got to get flying and then adventuring, and then when it sits down for a little while, then I'll swap it out. But that's the main plan to get that in. I've got to reconnect the rudder cables, the rudder return cable, and then before I get everything buttoned up, if you've seen my other video on the IFR fail, I'm gonna go ahead and swap out this fitting here, the two from the wing right there, and then the static line from the tail. I'm gonna swap out fittings there and hopefully get no leakage in the pitot-static system so I can pass my IFR. And then we'll get this buttoned up. I don't know if that's gonna happen all today, but I'm gonna put the camera down, get to work, because it snowed last night, early April snow, but it's clearing today. Tomorrow's gonna be beautiful. So that's my goal, is to fly tomorrow. This rudder cables and rudder return cables took so much fiddling with to get the right tension that I'll be damned if I'm not documenting it, remembering it, and then reviewing it right before I put in the... I've already loosened those nuts. Don't worry about the thread not showing. They're all already loose. Then I realized, you know what? I should probably take a video of this so that I know exactly which hole to put it in to get the tensions right. Ooh, speaking of tail wheel, check this out. I have long realized that this is probably going to be one of my first issues with this aircraft other than the brake rotor. It's just, you know, it's adequate for normal flying, but not for the kind of aggressive backcountry flying that I'm doing. So, upgrades. Dun, 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 dun. Beefy. Yes, TK1 shock monster tail wheel. It is beefy. I'll get on the intricacies of a bigger tail wheel and more weight on the tail and all that in an upcoming episode, but again, we got to get this flying. Loop route.
Man, does it feel good to be back in the bogey. It has been way too long. Today, we're going to do this up at Sisters for two reasons. They've got a brand new grass strip, and their gas is $5.80 versus $8 here in Bend. So I'm going to be nice and gentle on the brakes here, not to heat them up. I'm going to do the whole thing up on the grass at Sisters. Alright, brakes feel good. Gosh, it's just a beautiful day here in spring in Central Oregon. Just taxi nice and slow, minimize the brake usage, especially downhill here. Sisters traffic, experimental 3 Charlie Delta is a left downwind runway 20, full stop grass, Sisters. Alright, so the game plan is going to be to kind of do the initial warm-up on rollout. So you're supposed to kind of lightly drag your brakes for about a quarter mile, 1,500 feet, so about half the runway length. Warm them up, I'll spin around, and then do 2 bursts of up to about 40-45 miles an hour, and then they say light braking. I'm going to do moderate braking. And we're going to have a big wind drop when we get down below the tree shadow. Alright, the trees are made. Nice and hot, we're going to float, that's alright. Quite float. Alright, once we're about halfway down the runway, we're going to start dragging brakes. There we go, so dragging brakes lightly. Nobody else is here, so I'll just do the brake in from the grass. Okay, the flaps are going to be down, lights are on, trim is coming to take off, rich, and here we go. So 45 miles an hour, then light to moderate braking. Crosswind controls. There it is, okay, light to moderate braking. stop, and then do it one more time. Plenty of runway left. We'll go get gas and let them cool off. Okay, now off the brakes, let them cool.
All right, all fueled up, and it's a bit windy, so I'm gonna get underneath here and show you. One little drip of brake fluid, but otherwise it's looking nice and shiny, even wear. It's been a while. I had somebody say hello and comment on my channel. So Garrett, very nice to meet you, sir. Really not much to look at other than checking for leaks. One little drip right there, so we'll check on that. And then the other side's looking pretty good as well. Now I'm just gonna feel them, test them out. And they say if it's still spongy, if it doesn't hold with full power, then run it again. This thing is, you know, got a pretty good power to weight ratio, so I don't expect them to especially right off the bat, hold static with full power. Maybe loaded down into the wind, but that's asking a lot of this thing. So anyway, we're full of fuel. Let's get back to Bend and see how they do.
Ooh, we're heavy. Bend traffic, experimental 223 Charlie Delta, 6 mile 45 for the left downwind for runway 34 Bend. That was nice of that guy. He extended his upwind for me. Bend traffic, experimental 3 Charlie Delta, left base runway 34, full stop Bend. Parking brake is secured off, open.
Bend traffic, Oxford, particular kilo, turning final runway 34, good to go.
Ooh, gusty. Man, it's gusty. Brakes feel good. It's like variable. All over the place. Crosswind, gusty. Sun was in my eye, rocking my shoe. Alright, let's go ahead and feel how these brakes are. Yeah, they're good. They're not quite there yet, which is to be expected. So, what's next? Continue breaking them in. Tomorrow we're headed up to Walla Walla on a backcountry, side country adventure trip and wine tasting trip with some friends, and then tail wheel, the TK1 Monster Shock Monster tail wheel. So we're gonna get that installed. We're gonna probably have to beef up the tail a little bit, I've heard. Thanks to Brian Bowen as well as Beringer Arrow for
Fantastic grease.
these awesome brakes. I won't lie to you guys, that was a massive effort. I don't know if I captured it in video, but it was probably a good 3 half days underneath, installing the pedals, getting the rudder cables hooked back up, adjusting them, and then retorquing everything back down, because the idea of keeping the banjo fittings loose didn't work out as expected, because once you start tightening down, then the whole cable wants to shift on you. Brian, let me know in the comments of, I don't know exactly, maybe I misunderstood or something, but it isn't a minor upgrade, that's for sure. So, again, the biggest benefit is that the rotors aren't going to come flying off in stall drag. And then the stopping power, we're going to do a bunch more testing in the future and use flystow.net for actual GPS data and G-force data and all that good stuff. So I can't wait for that. But that will be, I'll call that episode 3 in this series, but that will conclude episode 2. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Until next time, it's Steve, you're cleared direct.